And we're live.
Hello, hello.
This time's Mark is actually here. This is not an illusion. This is the real
Not an
Mark.
illusion.
This
This
is
time I'm free from daddy duty, free from being sick.
post Bambino Mark Lawler.
Yeah,
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
How's the kid doing?
Really well, actually. We got the sleep cycle down, and that's just made life easier. Yeah, that's
Nice.
the secret, I think, is getting the sleep there. But yeah, really good. Just been a bit worried because I've been a bit sick, but apart from that, yeah, all good.
You sound great. So
well,
you're masking it very well.
I have a massive cup of tea that I am
Yeah.
cupping as I go here.
I also complimented you on your little background here earlier. I'm very, very impressed by it. The slat wall or whatever.
Yeah, I just realized I got my camera. I didn't mean to do this, but I've got mini me in the shop as well.
Wait, who made that? Where did you get that from?
It was a Christmas present from an old workplace for some work that I did for them. They
That's so cool.
Sent out bobbleheads of all the staff members.
Oh, is it work? Like, is a bobble, like if you shake
it's
it,
a
does
bobblehead.
it? That's incredible. That's amazing.
I
I'm
feel
like
everyone
actually
needs
very jealous about this.
a mini bobblehead version of themselves. It's like the best thing to have.
This
You know
might
when
be
you
the
need a
new
rubber duck like a thing? You can actually just talk to yourself. Yeah.
It's like a duck, but like it's your head, you know.
But the thing is, it always agrees with you.
Yeah. Word. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about regarding Nativewind stuff. So first and foremost, with you coming back to do Expo stuff, you're going to be focused entirely on Nativewind now for at least the next 2 weeks, you said?
Yeah, just for a short-term period. So normally I work full-time at Expo, focusing on router there. But there's a push at Expo at the moment. We're going to be focusing more on some UI stuff. And so part of that is I need to kind of get Nativewind up and cleaned up and out. And people should see a lot more UI stuff happening from Expo in the next couple of weeks or releases. If anyone's been keeping attention, we've got Nishan at Expo now, and he's been pushing out PRs on the React Native repo with new styling features. So we need to embrace those. We're going to be basically testing out things and making sure that the styling ecosystem for React Native, this is just like a mini sprint to try and make sure that it all works good. But a lot of that is also just making sure that things work with like the React compiler, which is now going to get enabled by default. In the future, we need to make sure that all the tooling is working properly, everything works properly in the new architecture, as the old architecture is going away in a version or two completely. So this is just kind of one of those community initiative pushes where we try and make sure that everything is kind of in the ecosystem up and running. Similar when the new architecture kind of came out, and we kind of made sure that third-party libraries were working properly with that. So the good news there is I can work full-time on Nativewind, getting out Nativewind v5, making sure it's up to date with the latest and greatest, and has all these new features. So that's good.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, so I published the migration guide yesterday after cleaning it up a little bit, and we'll probably add more to it, I imagine.
Yeah, there's going to be a bit more added to it because I've actually had a couple more advancements, I think is the best way to say. I guess like the best way is so Nativewind actually has a v5 branch now on the repo.
Oh, really? Okay.
And if you go into it, you'll see that it's a pretty bare bones minimal in terms of the code there. It's really just exporting from this package called React Native CSS that it used to. Because now I've just found a couple of different ways to kind of handle a lot more of the CSS properly. So
I was
don't even need
so
these like sort of like compatibility layers.
I was going through with Dan Scanlon yesterday the like Nativewind because now I'm gonna, as I begin to wrap up the documentation stuff. I mean, we'll probably have to like revisit for version 5 a bit, but I want to utilize the next 2 weeks to become quite a bit more technically familiar, so that we don't have this like drop off period. And I don't want it to just be me in that sense either. So we were going through it yesterday, and one of the things we were thinking is like, oh, React Native CSS is like a popular name. And we looked it up and we're like, oh crap, someone squatted it. And then we looked at it and it was like, oh wait, it was Mark a long time ago. He just like,
no, I secured that.
Okay, cool. We're good. We're good.
It took me like a couple of years, but I got it. That's all good.
Yeah, so we're good on that front. That enables all of the rest of Nativewind version 5 then. But there's a lot to go through. You know, we read through and kind of come through all the stuff. And even without the updates that will be made per what you found so far, there's a lot to internalize, a lot of really good stuff. And one thing I was going to suggest is to just stand up a PR, which is really easy to do now with the branch you said. Then that sort of can be a single place to sort of push people and see, okay, this is the running list of stuff, you know, that we're working through. And then you don't need any semblance of timeline. I've had a coming to Jesus moment. I think that you were telling me about like last year, and you're like, timelines are not like a good thing in open source. It's like when it happens, it happens. And I'm like, I didn't quite see what you meant. I get more of it now. I think communication is still important. But I definitely understand where you're coming from. And at some point I'll, you know, talk more at length about that. So yeah, I think the PR will be good though. I'll go to stand up that PR based around the branch you just mentioned. But one of the big breaking changes is the JSX import stuff and going to the import. Do you want to explain that really quick?
So we've been testing this, and it's been a bit of a problem with the React compiler, in that now in React, in terms of, okay, how do I rephrase this? Meta as a company develop React, and they are also pushing out the new features for React. And inside React, you've got two kind of teams. Well, they're not in two teams internally, but I'm just going to say what this is. That you've got the React Native and React team. And within that, you have the Metro team and then the React tooling team. So in the React tooling, they're making things like the React compiler. And then we have things like the Metro team that make the Metro bundler. And these are two different things. The compiler is a Babel plugin, while Metro is a full bundling system that uses Babel. The Metro bundler likes things not to be compiled. It wants to be able to be the source of truth and compile all the code for your project. It's how the Metro team say that they would really like code to be. They want it to be published to NPM, not compiled, so that you can compile it all locally on your computer. The compiler team, on the other hand, want things to be pre-compiled, and they want you to publish code up to NPM with it being pre-compiled, so that when you pull it down onto your computer and you run it through your local bundler, it goes through faster because everything's pre-compiled. So there's a bit of a disconnect there from React Native of, do we keep stuff compiled or like uncompiled or pre-compiled? Like, which of the two options do we do? Because we're dealing with a bundle that wants it one way, and now this new tool that wants it another way. And there's been no sort of like official word of how we should go. And so basically people in the ecosystem have started to just make decisions. They have to pick a direction, and the direction they've mostly picked is the pre-compiled route of, let's pre-compile the code and push it up to NPM as pre-compiled so that you can get all the advantages of the compiler, because the compiler, I don't know if people have used it, it's actually pretty amazing. When it works well, it works amazingly and completely speeds up an application. The problem with this is that Nativewind trusted that the code would always not be compiled, that we would never have to deal with pre-compiled code because we were just basically working exclusively with Metro, and Metro wanted to compile everything. And so that's how we built Nativewind. So with this ecosystem change, now a lot of packages are breaking for Nativewind. Because Nativewind doesn't know how to deal with this kind of pre-compiled code. Because of this, we're just kind of going to get rid of the JSX transform altogether, because it's unable to take advantage of these amazing speed boosts of the compiler. And I've tried tricks, I've tried ways to do it, and it's just too many layers of hacks come on top of things. And really, at some point in time, you have to realize that, yes, while this is the official way and proper way of doing it, it's not the best ideal way to do it anymore, and we need to kind of change tact. So this also means that we're going to change how the library works a little bit. So we're still going to have the 0 kind of configuration for elements for like text and view, but we're now going to use a Babel plugin to rewrite your imports in your application. So this isn't a new concept. Libraries like React Native Web did this originally, and they've been doing this for a very long time, where if you import a view, React Native Web will rewrite that. Instead of coming from React Native, it's coming from React Native Web. And we'll be doing the same. So instead of it coming from React Native or React Native Web, we're going to say that it comes from this new package, React Native CSS.
And that'll be by default for all things, unless you specify otherwise.
Correct. It'll be on all files that are being compiled by Babel, which by default in React Native is your source file and your node modules. There are some people do bundle improvements and try and exclude files from Babel. We'll have to have an advanced guide on just basically saying, try not to do that for these files, or separate your components out into separate files to make sure that they are compiled.
Yeah, something I've realized with the documentation is that whom does this serve is a big question that basically comes up, like whether you're someone consuming Nativewind as an end user, or are you consuming it as a library author, right? Someone building, say, on top of Nativewind. And so people will see this, especially with styling third-party libraries in V4. I'm going to start to make that distinction much clearer. And that's probably going to be the case as well moving forward into these changes that you're describing.
Yeah, so there's a couple of other new changes here as well. Before, we used to override your components with these new components. We're still doing that, but also now the library is becoming more hook-based. So this means that we are actually going to finally expose a hook that people could use to style their components as well. So this will be a hook could use CSS element, and you can pass it in as the first argument, the element that you want styled, and then the props for that element, and it will actually style that element for you with CSS. The catch here is that it doesn't return back a style object. It returns back a React element. So a fully rendered React element.
Interesting. I'm curious then how this affects library authors in general.
Well, now the library authors, they can actually import the view and text components directly from React Native CSS. So they can skip this JSX transform or this Babel transform and use the components directly, or they could actually just use the hooks directly as well.
So, but they'll have to rewrite their stuff to support that, though, assuming that they're going to be using. Well, actually, this is going to be backported to version 4, no?
I will try and backport this, yeah, but not necessarily, because in React Native, Babel runs on everything. So the transform by default will still happen for library authors. They don't have to do this, but they could actually, if they want to pre-compile their apps, they can using this method as well, so they don't have to go through those bubble transforms. So it works by default, but they can do optimizations to kind of improve how their library works.
Interesting. Okay. All right. What outside of the migration guide, because I actually think it's quite thorough, at least from the perspective when you started writing it, what are new developments since then that you've come across?
So one thing that we're doing now, and this we need to add this to the migration guide, is that we're now just going to go all in on using the Expo Metro config to help transform the files. So previously, before, if you wanted to use Nativewind on web, you had to use Expo, because Expo was the only library that properly parsed the CSS files for web. We're going to be using some new improvements from Expo as well in terms of their CSS parsing for the native side as well. So this doesn't mean that you have to use Expo as in their entire tooling and ecosystem. It just means that you need to have the Expo Metro config installed as a dependency. But Expo is also the recommended framework for React Native. So for most people, they should already be on a version of Expo that has this sort of config here. The reason why we're doing this is, like I'm saying, it just allows us to use Expo's file transformer, which allows us to get rid of a lot of the Metro hacks that we did, as now that's actually just baked directly into Expo.
Great. Yeah. And then speaking of things that are baked in, like at this point, most of everything, I saw you you removed the example from that PR that I had opened. So the only thing remaining in Nativewind now, is the packages directory with the two, CSS interop and Nativewind, and then what is the test suite, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like now we just have Turbo Repo as like we just barely need it kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of Turbo Repo. We don't quite need it there.
Okay, cool. That'll be great. Does that mean that React Native CSS and Nativewind will now live in separate repositories?
Yeah, so there is a repository for React Native CSS. I'll be updating that today and trying to get out a beta version of that published so we can start doing some.
Cool. Yeah, because I think that testing them, like I was trying to go through the tests yesterday, and something I realized is that they really do need to be tested in isolation. It feels like something that's just like, you don't know if you're solving the test problem or a Jest Expo issue. And yeah, definitely need to go through. I was banging my head against the wall of the Jest Expo
so luckily, our tests become a lot simpler as well, because now we no longer have to do the JSX transform inside Jest, which was always a bit of a headache to do as well.
Great. That's awesome.
Just with the migration guide, the other last change that we're going to add to it as well is, before, Nativewind worked just by having Tailwind CSS installed. So you just had to have it basically there. Now we're going to add the requirement that you still need to do the framework setup for Tailwind CSS. So I'll just link this. It's like in the Tailwind CSS installation guide on their website, they have a guide for using post CSS.
Let me know if you can post a comment or not. I see you posted it.
Got it.
I'll copy it from there and paste it in the comments, the public comments, that is.
So we just require people to also follow this step as well. So this will be a new thing for V5.
Okay.
So this will help out a lot with the dependency version management. So before there was a bit of an issue with V4 in Expo where Lightning CSS or post CSS would kind of get out of hand, and it was hard to tell which of the versions were in control or something. So now you basically have to explicitly say which version that you're going to use and have to set up the post CSS bundler here. The reason why we're doing this is, because it allows us the version control, but also this is how you tap into Expo's CSS handling. So Expo is just like a normal framework. If you want to tap into its CSS pipeline, you need to do it via post CSS. So because we're now using Expo's pipeline for everything, you just need to kind of follow the same instructions there. So it's just a one file update there.
Okay. And then something I've been debating is whether to just have a lot of our defaults just be Expo stuff. I think that's largely how we're doing things right now. The only place where it matters where I feel we aren't is actually in the content array in the installation instructions, because I think most Expo apps now start with a app directory, because of router. So we get some complaints from that. That's not going to matter so much with version 5 because, it largely does away with a lot of that configuration and most of the
completely goes away. Yeah.
Yeah. And big, if I understand correctly, a big benefit of Tailwind version 4 is that all of this configuration stuff lives on the CSS level itself rather than JavaScript. So, so we should just see less of those issues. Yeah, and hopefully we can more increasingly point people to just the Tailwind documentation rather than having to explicitly have like Nativewind restate the same stuff.
Yeah, so that's a big thing with this change now, is that now we're just like, we process CSS, we process Tailwind. We'll just go to the Tailwind docs and do what they do there, and it should work. We don't have these Nativewind polyfills or this extra layer on things anymore. So another part of this is we're actually going to be removing the Nativewind Tailwind plugin. So we used to have a plugin for Tailwind that configured Tailwind a little bit to kind of tweak some of its output values to make them more Nativewind friendly. That's no longer needed, as we can actually just process the CSS of that Tailwind produces. We no longer need to tweak or add in any hacks or polyfills. Yeah, okay. So that's kind of been like the big change over the last couple of weeks while I've been away, that we can get rid of that step entirely.
Nice. Okay, so then this and next week will largely be version 5 oriented. I can stand up that PR, so you don't have to worry about it. On the documentation side of things, I'm currently trying to power through the monorepo use and then third-party library stuff. These are a little bit more dense than, in terms of guides, than past guides. So it's a bit more work. I'll probably slow down to like one a week rather than one every couple days that I've been doing to date. But the other thing that I had been looking into, I spoke to, when I was at Vercel Ship this past week, if you're familiar with the conference. Yep. And I got a chance to talk to Lee Robinson, who does their like DevRel stuff. I brought up how, we're doing this whole like make humans love Nativewind, make LLMs love Nativewind, release the version 5 stuff, like modernize Nativewind, and then lastly make Nativewind performant as sort of the game plan. And he said, yeah, that sounds really good. I would only just do one thing differently. He suggested that the documentation be, and I brought this up on last week's State of Nativewind, where you separate out documentation, like technical documentation, from the concept of education, such that documentation is sort of written LLM first, treats that as a first-class citizen, versus education treating humans as first-class citizens. It's a subtle difference, but I thought it was an interesting one to note. And I've seen other people kind of employ this approach. But yeah, that's sort of a concept that I'm thinking of as we move into the next several weeks, like employing, because I'm starting to move into the LLM phase of Nativewind stuff, which has me looking at things like LLM.text, MCP, bunch of stuff that kind of feels like it's just SEO largely. Surprisingly, a lot of the stuff that functions SEO also applies to LLMs. The only weird thing is that different models look at this differently, right? Like ChatGPT apparently doesn't really fuck with MCP. They have their own kind of situation. So, but another fun fact is that usage of Nativewind, or at least the viewing, the analytics of the website from ChatGPT is increasing. So we're seeing an uptick in that.
That reminds me, I did not do the thing you asked me to do on the website with analytics. I will change that now.
Oh yeah, I mean it's free now. You know, we're again, big thanks to Vercel for adding us to the open source, I think spring or summer cohort. They've been very generous with giving us some of this stuff, and it really helps out.
Yes, because our usage was going crazy.
Yeah, it was like we would hit the max usage on the first day of the billing cycle, you know, and that was so. And they've been like, you know, Cap specifically has just been like, anything you need, just like let us know, and if there's other open source stuff, then that is automatically kind of in, which, you know, very grateful for that. So big thanks to them. But yeah, so that is something I'm thinking a lot about, of that sort of documentation being very like code heavy, like actual practical examples, or simply just linking back, like I said, to the Tailwind stuff, versus educational resources being more human oriented, being more video, more collaborations with like folks like Vadim and Simon and them, you know. And then finally you have like community stuff, which is like people who are building on top of Nativewind, different like libraries, tooling, like all that jazz. So that's generally what you'll start to see more of, and I think it'll do really well. So that's documentation. Nativewind UI side, we're just going to release this companion app. And that'll actually let you like feel this stuff in your hand. I'd like it to become like a playground for Nativewind and Nativewind UI. Because, you know, we're pretty limited with what we can do on the web. So, but if we ship our own like development client to in the form of the app, then it expands the options a bit. So,
yeah, we need to actually play around with that and see if we can actually get the WASM versions of Lightning CSS and Tailwind in an app directly, so that you can just compile directly inside the app in the playground.
Yeah, I'd love to. That's sort of like next step for us. So that's kind of like probably like an August thing. I'd love to dig around into that. So one thing I did want to ask is, I was chatting with, I think, Dan at Expo, and trying to make sure that Nativewind works smoothly with Expo Go, because I know that, you know, Replit and Bolt and all these use Expo Go, and I want to make sure that they're able to have Nativewind properly supported. I know you ran into a problem with specifically, I think, adding it to Expo Snack in the past.
Yes.
I was meaning to go through the setup instructions in Snack to get Nativewind going. I immediately realized I needed to add libraries There's no terminal there. So you just have to kind of add the packages to the package.json. What was the specific problem you were running into? Because when I set up a project with rn-new and just do Nativewind, it's using Expo Go, right? So
yeah. So Snack works a little bit differently in how it compiles. It doesn't really have this server to compile things. There were some changes to Metro done about 2-3 months ago by Expo to actually allow Metro to work in WASM environments. And that actually allowed Nativewind to work in a browser. There were a couple of like test projects there. I don't think those projects ever saw the light of day publicly. It was for another project that never quite got released. But it has the potential to work there. Like someone else has done the proof of concept and it worked for them to have it work inside like StackBlitz and Bolt.new. Like it was working there. So I don't know if we can get it working in Snack until maybe a new version of Snack comes out, but we could get it working on device.
I am going to probably be taking a stab at creating a new Snack variant that is like has a chat window associated with it. I think that's a big missing chunk that I'd like to see happen. And I know that there can be some complexity with Snack and sort of like how it was built originally. It wasn't, it was never built for any of this stuff in mind.
Yeah.
Like it just sort of exists. It's effectively like a hackathon project. So I want to take a stab at that and see what I can come up with. But I get the sense I'm about to become very, very, very familiar with like development clients and what you can or can't do with respect to Apple. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Is there other stuff that you wanted to surface with respect to version 5, or anything
really,
that's being backported into 4?
No. I think we'll just, because version 5 is a big change under the hood for stuff.
Yeah.
I think we'll just back the import changes. And then just be focusing more on V5 in the new library of React CSS or React Native CSS.
Cool. Then I'm gonna continue to sort of bang away at the Just Expo thing, unless you sort of just know.
I'm gonna have a look. I'm gonna do that today on the.
Okay.
I'll get working on the V5 stuff, and then I'll have a look at the V4 stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably dedicate a little bit of time to try to figure it out. But the other thing is wanting to publish some of the PRs that have been merged in. We haven't actually like released them as a version on NPM. And I also don't think subsequently I can publish a README to NPM. So the README on NPM is crazy outdated.
Okay. We should just fix that. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the only like 2 major things, is that we'll probably want to set something up to be able to like release actual versions, including the stuff that has already been merged in to date. Yeah. So that's where things are at. By next week, probably what? I'm hoping to have one, ideally 2 of those guides done, and a bit of the work more on the LLM front. Yeah, we'll probably, I guess we can try to publish the additional stuff in the migration guide blog now. You can just kind of go in and like add whatever you feel needs to be added there. Cool. And then that PR that I'll stand up to surface like the domain of stuff being done on version 5, which similarly just if you feel any need to add stuff there, obviously.
Yep. I'll change that a bit. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, then I guess we can call it a day. It's 30 minutes, 9 minutes, 39 minutes.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
All right. Catch you up.